Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our session in partnership with the TSI Network and the Third Sector Employability Forum. We're going to be looking at the outcome star and how it evidences the effectiveness of your employment service. I'm Jayne Chappell. I'm the membership manager here at Social Enterprise Scotland, and we're the intermediary for social enterprise and the membership organisation nationally for social enterprise across Scotland. It's nice to see so many folk here. So thank you for joining us. I think it probably reflects the topic. For as long as I've been in the sector, a robust impact measurement tool has kind of felt like the holy grail. Whether you're using it to demonstrate value, improve effectiveness, attract funding, win contracts, maintain trust with beneficiaries and stakeholders, it does feel like, something that's of the most importance within our sector, and particularly within employability, where the comprehensive, shall we say, reporting requirements are key. So we're delighted to be joined today by Jim and Eileen from Triangle, who are the creators of the Outcome Star. Just before I hand over to say, we're online, so the usual rules apply. If you can keep yourself on mute initially, and we can bring you in for questions. Please feel free to use the chat to say who you are, to say where you're from, if you want to share any experiences you've had around impact measurement, that would be great. Or if you just want to tell us how close or far away your weather is from spring today, that would be good to hear as well. So I think that's probably it from me. Just to say, we will share the presentations after the event. We will share Jim and Eileen's email addresses after the event so that you can contact them easily. And then right at the end, I'm going to post a wee evaluation link in. If you could just tell us sort of what you thought of the session today and also ideas for future sessions, that would be incredibly helpful. So I think it's over to you now, Jim.
Okay, thank you very much, and hello everybody. As Jayne said, my name is Jim Borland. I am the regional manager for the Outcome Star, and I cover Scotland and Ireland, and I'm going to be assisted today by our regional coordinator, my colleague Eileen Cassidy. I'm going to share my screen. If somebody could just let me know that everybody can see okay once it comes up. You should hopefully see the presentation just now, which I'm going to go through in detail with you. Can everybody see that okay?
Yep, can.
Yep, perfect. Okay. In terms of today's orientation session, I'm going to focus very much on the Work Star and on the Pathway Star, which are the two stars that we've got, which are very much geared towards the employment sector. However, we will touch on other sectors which the star works on. But in terms of the session today, obviously it's myself that's going to be doing the presentation, and Eileen's going to be assisting with that. And the whole aim of the session is really to give you some detail and some information about the work and the pathway stars. We also want to outline the benefits of about using the star operationally and the materials and the support that's available there. And then to think about the considerations around implementing the star itself, what you need to do in terms of your own organisation to implement the star well and to make sure that you get best value for money and best use of the star operationally. And to help with that, we'll look at the Star Online system, which is the IT system that we use to collate and to record all the different outcomes data and the support that's available in terms of using that system. And the last part of today, we'll be looking at the pricing, how much it costs to actually operate the star, both initially to set things up, but then on an ongoing basis. That's the kind of 5 areas that I'm going to cover, and hopefully we'll cover that in about 40 to 45 minutes, something along those lines. As Jayne mentioned, you're probably currently on mute. So if you've got a burning question or whatever, then please unmute if there's a suitable gap, or alternatively use the chat to ask those questions as they come to you. But after each of those kind of 5 areas that I outlined there, I will stop just for some questions to see if there's anything that specifically you want answered at that stage. But the first part is going to be over to yourself. And I've got a little Mentimeter question here. So first of all, hopefully you should see on the screen beside you just now, either the QR code to access the Mentimeter, or if you use a browser, you've got the web address there, so www.menti.com. And when you're prompted to do so, if you can put in that 8-figure digit or 8-figure code. That should get you into the actual Menti itself. And then once everybody's in, we can start to then ask the questions and hopefully get a little bit of feedback. So I can see that people are starting to access it, which is great. Just give it a couple more seconds to let more people in. Eileen, if it's possible, just before I move on, can you put that code in the browser bit up in the chat, please, for people to access that way?
Yeah, Pegs has added that to the chat, and I will add the question in for anybody that prefers not to use Menti. They can use it in the chat.
Perfect.
At the moment, it's just showing the instructions, so just to say that again.
I'm just waiting. There's about 12 people that I can see that have joined so far, so we're just giving everybody a wee bit more time that way before I move on. So, right, we'll move on anyway, and hopefully people can join using the ones as we go through. So, the first, why is this not working? So the first question that I would ask is thinking about your own organisation, or if you're working in the employment sector specifically, so what do you need from an outcomes measurement tool? Because if we don't know that, then you don't know if the outcome star is going to be the proper tool for you. So you should be able to add your responses, just click into the little box, type in your responses, and when you save them, that should come up on the actual Menti itself. That's them starting to come in. So you're looking to measure the impact of clients, demonstrate impact towards that person's journey towards work, show the client's progress, understand journey of the travel, collecting data, accessing real impactful needs of a client, measure various milestones, personal relevant outcomes, show progress, make sure it's easy to understand, easy to use, a convenient way of measuring them, show the client progress, show impact. These are all really, really good, important things. So thank you for that. So you're tracking progress, you're showing analysis from inputs and such like. It should be easy to understand, accessible, non-intimidating, and have you made an impact embedding your services into the community? All relevant questions, and really that's the needs, that outlines exactly what you need from this outcomes measurement tool. So hopefully what I'll be able to demonstrate throughout the kind of session this afternoon is that the star can answer those questions for you. It can help you in demonstrating that. So if I flick back to the presentation, I mentioned before this session is going to concentrate specifically on the employment sector and the 2 stars within that, the work star and the pathway star. However, stars cover a vast majority of sectors where a lot of organisations work in. And what's on the screen just now is just a selection of the different areas that we do work in, or that there are stars available for you. So it ranges from adult care through the armed forces and support of that, to children and families, to to criminal justice, specific ones around substance misuse, around homelessness and housing, around education. But as I say, the one that we're going to concentrate on today is specifically the employment sector. And within that sector, we have the 2 stars. The first one is the work star, and that's specifically geared towards individuals who are looking to get into employment. They're at that stage where they're available for work, they've got that the right mindset towards trying to get into work, or alternatively, they're in work, they're looking to stay there, they're looking to consolidate that position. And the work star helps evidence the support that can be provided that way. The pathway star is slightly different in that it helps people get ready to reach that point where they would be able to apply for a job or for volunteering. It's really more about the kind of social circumstances that people find themselves in. So it's really to support them and get them actively moving towards that working future, get them ready to engage with mainstream employment and resolve the issues that perhaps prohibit them from doing that. And what you can see on the screen just now are a couple of quotes from different organisations who helped in the development of those stars, and it shows how those stars work. But in terms of background to those stars, the stars have been around for some considerable time, and specifically for the outcome star itself, work in that really started back in 2003. And there's a kind of common misconception that the star is just a new tool. It's just recently been developed. And that couldn't be further from the truth. It's been about for over 20 years now in various versions. But the original outcome star was developed in 2003, and it took 3 years to get it into publication. And the reason for that was we were constantly going back and asking the people who were using it at the front coalface, so service users, key workers, their managers and frontline managers, and then the strategic managers. We wanted to make it as fit for purpose as possible. So that first star, which was based in the homelessness sector, was published in 2006. And literally as soon as it went onto the market, what happened was that other organisations started to look at the way that the star worked and wanted a star for their own particular sector of business. So we started to work on different areas, and that included the employment sector. And the work star was first developed in 2008. It was closely followed by some other stars, the teen star, the family stars, and such like. But like everything else in life, things move on. And it was recognised that approximately 10 years later, we needed to update the work star because we needed to meet the changes in the employment sector and the different service delivery models that were operating then. So the work star was updated in 2017, and that's the version that we still use just now. However, during that review for the work star, what we found was there was a need for another star, one that actually worked before the work star came into its own. And that's where the pathway star was developed. And it really was developed to meet the demands within the sector, specifically those wider issues, stopping those employment opportunities. And that became available in 2019. And both of these stars really work on this idea of a journey of change. And the way that the journey of change works is that it's focused upon a number of different approaches. And for both the work star and the pathway star, it's about the empowerment journey, where it focuses on the person changing their attitudes, their skills, or the behaviours, so that they can actually get the support they need. And hopefully by the end of their journey, they've reached a stage where they become self-supporting, they're able to manage things for themselves. However, the pathway journey, or the pathway star, because it's slightly different and focuses on a lot of different personal issues, there is elements there of the enablement journey as well, because it's there, they need support to meet their basic needs, and the pathway star helps to drive that support for them. In terms of the stars themselves, this is the work star, and this is the pathway star. And I've got a question for you, which I'd be really appreciative if you could put up into the chat. Because what I want you to look at is, what differences do you see? What is different between the two stars that you can see on the screen just now? And if you can put some details into the chat for that, I'd be most obliged. Unfortunately, I can't see the chat. So, Eileen, if you could maybe feedback on what's there.
Yep, it's coming in thick and fast, Jim. So we've got the numbers are different. So yep, the work star is 1 to 10 and the pathway star is 1 to 5.
Yep.
There's fewer steps in the pathway star. 5 points, not 10. There's more stages in the work star. Pathway looks at home and lifestyle. The outcomes are different, and the pathway is more personal life focused.
Okay, perfect. I think you've clocked on to the main differences, but just to kind of summarise that, there are different outcome areas for them. In the pathway star, there are 8 distinct outcome areas, which are these points of the star. And you see listed on the screen just now those 8 different areas that we look at there, from skills, stability at home, money, lifestyle, confidence, friends, and such like. The pathway star only has 7 because it's more specific towards gaining employment or remaining in employment. So it's looking at those basic skills, the stability, their ability to actually search out a job, their own job skills and experience and how they can evidence that and their aspirations and such like. So there are distinct differences in terms of the actual outcome areas themselves. But as you correctly pointed out, within the pathway star, it's a 5-stage journey of change, because there we're looking at these skills, these personal abilities, and we want to be able to demonstrate them perhaps a little bit more generally. It's not specific skills that we're looking to demonstrate that improvement on. Whereas with the work star, we need to drill that down a little bit further. So that's why for that particular star, the journey of change is split up into 10 steps. So 2 steps per stage, and it allows us to drill that little bit down, that little bit deeper down to actually demonstrate that. So there are a few differences for it. And what I would highlight for you is that one person can start with the pathway star, they finish the support and they get to the stage where they're ready to start gaining employment or seeking employment. And at that stage, they would perhaps move to the work star if support is still required. However, what you can't do in terms of the data that's received is transfer that data from one star to another. It would be a different star that would be started, and you would need to collate the data individually that way. So that's the 2 stars. Before I move on to the kind of benefits of using the star or the different things that way, are there any specific questions or comments? And if you want to put them in the chat, I'd be most obliged. Anything coming in, Eileen?
Nothing so far, Jim. Oh,
Okay.
we do. Here we go. Is there a star to support in work support to sustain employment?
The work star can be used within that kind of work environment to help an individual sustain that employment. So it's there initially to get them into the employment, but it can also be used to sustain that employment as well. It can be used in that environment.
So no other questions coming in at the moment, Jim.
Okay. Hopefully that answered that last question, so I'll move on. So another Mentimeter one. So let me flip back to that and we'll go to the next question, the next slide. So what I would want you to do here is to think about those particular 6 statements which are up on the screen just now. And I want to think about your own service and the service that you deliver to people. And I want you to think about the different statements there and rank them in terms of importance to yourself relative to that outcomes measurement tool. So all you need to do is to click on one, and you can move it around about the screen just to rank the importance that way. There we go, start to come through so that it's empowering for the client. Holistic, it focuses on strengths. The outcomes data starting to creep up as well. Oh no, so way back doing it. So So again, we've got a kind of a dead heat so far. No, it's moving again. It's still empowering for the client. It's holistic, being consistent, integral to processes is really down at the bottom. So you want everything to really focus on the client there. Okay, I'll give a couple of more seconds just before I move on. They seem to be settling out there. Okay, thank you very much for that again. The reason I ask that is because in terms of the star, there are specific key benefits. And the ones that you've just ranked there are the main key benefits that you'll get from using the star. And the first of those is that it is empowering for the client. It helps them make changes and move towards their goals. But perhaps importantly, it allows them to engage with their own agenda, their own priorities, so it becomes empowering for them. In terms of using the star, it's also consistent regarding the ways that it's used, the recording of the outcomes, because there's a defined scale there. And it's also consistent because we recommend that it's the same key worker doing the star with the same client time and time again. So they both get used to completing the star, and through that trust, through the relationship that's built up, you will hopefully get a quality of data that way. The way that the star's been developed is that it is holistic. It looks at all aspects of that person's life, including the strengths, things that they might ordinarily not focus on, but it looks at those strengths as well as areas where they might need a wee bit more support. But when they start to look at those strengths, you can start to focus in on the assets that they have. And it allows the worker to identify the strengths that the client have, which may come from external sources as well as internally. So things like family, friends, the community, as well as specific internal strengths that they might have themselves. But hopefully in using the star, it shouldn't be an additional task. It should complement your existing work practices and inform that support of that action planning and give you opportunities to integrate existing IT systems with the star online. So it doesn't, we minimize duplication for it, and it shouldn't be a separate task or an additional task that has to be done. But there's no getting away from it. It does give you meaningful outcomes information, and it demonstrates what is, or perhaps more importantly, what's not working for both the individual and the support that's been provided to them. It evidences effectiveness, and that's right across the board. From the service provided to the client, they'll be able to see their journey. The key worker will be able to see the impact of the support that's being provided for maybe teams or for specific services. The manager there will be able to see how the whole service is performing, and that's really important when it comes to things like the quarterly reports or annual reports, and you can take that right up to the more strategic leaders who can see across data for the whole organization. So it really ticks the boxes for data gathering and measuring outcomes across all of these different areas. In terms of what we can do to support that quality of information, that quality of data gathering, there is a number of different materials which are available, which when you start to engage with using the star, they become available to all the workers who are going to be using it operationally. And two of the main key ones you'll see on the screen just now are the user's guide and the star chart. In terms of the user's guide, within that, what you'll be able to see are some brief descriptions. And on the screen just now, what you can see are the brief descriptions for one of the outcome areas within both the work star and the pathway star. And what these brief descriptions do are that they describe each stage of the journey of change, and it gives an overview of the outcome area in a short kind of sentence statement. For the work star, which is displayed here on the left, there's also some key points for the worker to consider relative to assessing where the person is on the scales themselves. In addition to that, what you also have are detailed scales, and this one here is for the work star. I said that was broken down into 10 different steps, and this really starts to define those different steps. Again, it provides that clarity and examples of different things that can be considered in that area. And it's generally these type of scales that workers use as the main evidence base for identifying where a client is on their particular journey. But as well as those, the user's guide, there's also some other documents which are available, these scales or quiz, and these are really good for initiating that discussion. And it can be used to set the scene and create an understanding within the person being supported about what the different outcome areas are and what the different stages of the journey of change represent. And it can also be used as a kind of self-assessment tool for the person being supported so that they can judge for themselves where they are on that journey of change. In addition to the scales of the quiz, we also have flashcards. And again, these can be used to set the scene and create that understanding, create those discussions with the person being supported about what the different outcome areas are and what the different stages of the journey of change represents. But once those discussions have happened, what you need to then be able to do is to put that information somewhere. And where you put it is within the star chart itself. And here you can record the different values for all the different outcome areas which are going to be discussed. And over towards the right-hand side of it, it allows you to identify, is it a first recording, so the first time you've completed a star with an individual? Is it a review? Or is it alternatively, is it a retrospective star, which is really looking back to where someone was in their journey? And that can be used in different ways. So you've got different options there in terms of recording what type of star it is. In addition to that, the best way to complete a star is with the worker and the service user working together. We do describe it as being an individual journey, this journey of change for a person, but it's a collaborative process that's used. It's the support worker or the key worker there supporting the individual along that journey. So that's why it's ideally used as within that collaborative kind of environment that way. But there are different options. The other option that you can use is to actually have the worker complete that themselves. Perhaps the person being supported is under too much stress or too much hassle, and it would actually increase that stress if you were then to go through the process of completing a star. So on those type of occasions, the worker can do it on their behalf. Alternatively, the service user might want to complete it for themselves, do a self-assessment. And from that, the worker can then discuss the results with them. So there are different ways that the star can be completed that way. In addition to the values at the front, in the middle pages of the star chart, what you then have, as you can see in the screen just now, is an opportunity to record some notes. And these are really used to explain the rationale for the value that was put on the front page, reflect the conversations that we had. And these should be easily understood and capture the key points of the discussion. So what's going well or what's not going well. And it's evidence there to support the reading, the activities undertaken. In some instances, they also put in some quotes from the client, how they're feeling about different things and such like. So that's just a kind of snapshot of the different materials which are there to support star use. So again, before I move on to the next one, is there any questions or any comments about that?
Had quite a lot in the chat while you've been chatting away there, Jim. Some people asking if it's possible to have a demo of the Star Online system. So we've just been saying in the chat that unfortunately there isn't a demo of the system to date, but anybody who would like one, just get in touch. We'll be more than happy to arrange that and demo that for you. And Maria was asking if it was a workbook that the individuals go through.
It's not a workbook, no. It's basically just, it's a discussion. It's based on the type of conversations that are already there, but it's a mechanism to record those conversations, to assess those conversations, where somebody is on that journey, and then record it within the star chart. So it's not a specific workbook. The star chart itself is actually only a 4-page document, which is comprised of the chart at the front, the notes in the second and third, and on the 4th page, the back page, it's an opportunity to record your kind of next actions. So it's not a workbook as such, no.
There's no more questions at the chat at the moment, Jim. I don't see anyone typing.
Okay, thank you for that. So, moving on then. Again, you'll be pleased to know this is your last question that I'm going to ask yourselves. And I'll put that, there's my cursor there. So, again, a similar kind of format to that first question I would ask. I'd just like you to think about if you have to implement some kind of new system, some new process, some new tool into your particular service. You may already have done this in the past, or you're thinking about doing it in the future. But I want you to think about what the barriers are to those to that implementation of any new kind of system or any new kind of tool. So again, if you can just write some comments on the boxes that are available to you. So some really good answers coming in already. Time to understand it, getting some buy-in from colleagues, the time involved, the training, the cost, confidence in using it, the funder requirements, staff understanding that purpose, so that's maybe linked into the buy-in again, the language that's used, costs from gaining buy-in from the team, training again is a big one that's coming through and from quite a few people there. A lack of investment in the process by the client, so it makes it difficult to determine those real status outcomes. Yep. Fear of making mistakes or misunderstanding how it works. So again, that's maybe down to the quality of the training and making sure people fully understand it. Integrating with others' reporting systems, resistance to change, all really, really good points there. Yep, IT support, and it's all seen as additional work. Okay, thank you all for that. The reason I asked that is because implementation itself is one of the key elements of using the STAR. And you can see from the screen just now that that kind of implementation or active effort from organisations really makes the difference between whether something works for them or it's not. But every implementation journey is different because every organisation is different. They have different challenges, different resources, different complexities. But no matter what your organisation is, there is support there from ourselves. You make your own choices that work for your own organisations, but we can help with advice, with guidance, and maybe some best practice in terms of how the STAR can work. So as a service, you could be thinking about using the STAR. And if that's the case, then we have got tips, we'll get some information there that can help you do that. But the key element there is you don't have to make that journey yourself. We are here to support you in that. And in terms of that, we have what we call the implementation roadmap. And here what you'll see is it's a kind of three-stage process. The first part of that process is around scoping and planning. You need to have found out about the STAR. Maybe you're thinking about using it, and you need to then think about the implications around it. So you're thinking about the practical things around how exactly you're going to use it. What's the benefits? What's the challenges that that implementation might bring? So once you've got that, you've thought about that, you then need to think about getting going itself. And when you're starting to think about getting going, it's usually after the initial STAR training and maybe perhaps in the first 12 months. And you'll be building consistent use of the STAR, ironing out problems, checking if the data you're getting is as you expected it to be. You'll start to learn from what the STAR data is telling you, perhaps allowing you to develop or improve your delivery of services. And we've got a webinar there to help you with that. But that getting going is really about embedding it into your systems that way. So once you've been going for some time, it's the last stage in the journey. And this one really is about keeping you going over that time. And here, what you're doing is you're thinking about how do you keep it fresh? Do you have any case studies or any good examples of work that's been provided that's actually made a difference? How do you learn from what it's actually telling you to keep your service moving on? So those different kind of stages of the journey are all there. And the key thing for it is that you understand your starting point. You recognize that it's a journey. But as you can see from that diagram that's on the screen just now, it's not a straight road. There are lots of curves, there are lots of bends. You have to expect that winding road. But no matter where you are, we've got the resources and the support that can help you with that. And part of that resources are a couple of key documents which you'll see on the screen just in front of you just now. The first of those is an implementation guide. That implementation guide sets out your intention and internal guidance for using the STAR within your service. And that's of particular benefit to staff as it provides a clarity around how the STAR should be used and what the intended strategy of the different processes are. That helps you get things set up. Thereafter, the implementation tracker, which is over on the right-hand side of the screen, is a flexible tool that can be used by a manager or a working group or within specific teams to get their perspective on what's working well or perhaps what's not. And just like a STAR, once you've done a reading in your tracker, you can use the information that it gives you to develop an action plan to address any areas that might need some attention. The way that it does that is that it provides these different sections for you to look at. So things like planning and monitoring, buy-in across the organisation, integration with your paperwork, the role of key workers, team managers and such like. And it allows you to kind of judge in the same way as you have a journey of change for the clients you support, it allows you to judge that internal implementation of how things are working. So for some areas, it might not be working well yet. For others, yes, things are starting to work well and staff are starting to take the initiative and to develop things. And ultimately, you're hoping to get to the areas of good practice. So the tracker's there to help you that way, and you can use it very productively that way. So, any questions or comments about those materials or implementing the STAR into your service?
So we have a question in the chat asking if we can give an example of a client using the STAR so that they can understand the application of use. So we can link you up with other services. If you are happy for us to share your email address, we can get in touch with a few people already using the STAR in employment services and get them to connect with you directly. So do let us know if you would like us to do that for you. We've got, can managers see data by frontline workers and how might they use the tool in that way?
The managers can see the way that the system is set up. It's based on permissions. So the key worker can see their own particular caseload. Their particular first line manager can see everybody within their team, and thereafter the managers above that, if it's maybe over a couple of different teams, can see the data that way. So it's all based on permissions. And for each area, for each level, from key worker all the way up to kind of strategic managers and the account leads, they can run a series of different reports which are available. It would take too long to go through all the different reports that are available, but the data is presented to them to look at things like implementation, to look at the distance travelled and improvements that way. So all that data is available at that particular permission level, and it can be used to actually enhance that service delivery, either on an operational basis or across the full service to improve things that way. Again, back to a previous question that was asked about getting a demonstration of the system. If that was something that was of interest, then within that demonstration, we do look at the different reports that are available, and there are different webinars that are available which are free. People can go along to them, and it shows the different type of reports that are available there, and it shows you how to pull that data and how it can be used proactively within your service. Hopefully that answers that question.
No other questions. No other questions coming in just now. Thanks, Jim.
Okay. So what I have here, and hopefully this will work if I've set it up properly, I've just got a short introduction just so you can see what the STAR Online looks like. So I'll play this video and then hopefully that will give you an understanding of what the STAR Online can do.
Are you an organisation supporting people to change their lives? Do you need to capture more information about the outcomes being achieved and support strengths-based, person-centred practice? The Outcomes Star Online helps you understand the people you support and keep track of the outcomes being achieved. With evidence-based tools tailored to more than 50 different sectors and service settings. Are you writing notes on paper? Or using clunky systems with complicated forms? Outcomes Star Online is simple to use, enabling you to work collaboratively with the people you support, whilst being secure, compliant, and focused on best practice. Does your organisation have lots of data but no insight? Is it hard to create meaningful reports? Outcomes Star Online can help with ready-made reports at a click of a button, enabling you to use your outcomes data for impact reporting, learning, and service development.
Okay, that gives you just a flavour of the Star Online. As I say, the demonstrations can go into that in far more detail, and as do the webinars. So again, if you're interested in that, please feel free to contact us after the session today, and we can hopefully set something like that up. But I also wanted to just highlight some of the recent developments in terms of the Star Online, which have just recently come online, but are deemed to be of a great deal of benefit. The first of these is a single sign-on, and that helps to eliminate some of the duplication of staff signing on to multiple systems. So they sign on once through Microsoft 365 or through Google systems, and it automatically allows them to sign on in that one occasion. We also have the integration with external IT systems via the API, and that allows the two-way transfer of data and reports between independent systems. And again, it minimises that duplication. The systems talk to each other and will transfer information back and forward. So again, for the key worker, they don't see any difference, but it's actually two different systems that are being used, but they're integrated and working together that way. The last update recently is an assistant account lead facility. Now, for each account that we have with different clients that we support, there is a specified account lead, and that individual has got the responsibility internally for maintaining that account, for making sure all the staff records are up to date, that all the licenses are allocated and such like. But that can be quite labour intensive. So having the assistant account lead facility shares that role and shares that responsibility. And you can have as many assistant account leads as you need. Might be 1, it might be 10, but you can set it up for as many people as you want, and it's good for covering things like absences or abstractions. But we're not just sitting on the system and just stopping developing it. There are a number of different areas that we are continuing to develop. And the first of those is an offline app. We recognise the fact that internet coverage can sometimes be sketchy in particular geographical areas of the country. So the offline app allows for that star completion while staff are out of internet range. And it works in conjunction with our live completion facility. And we expect that should be available later on in the year, sometime round about the autumn. As I say, linked to that, we have this live completion. So rather than printing off all these hard copy documents, what you can do is use the live completion, which is sitting with the client face to face, you looking at a screen and actually completing the star on screen. And it's the update to it, or the upgrade to it, is designed to make the interface more user friendly. And again, that will be coming online along with the offline app in the autumn of this year. The last one that we're working on is what's called a stakeholder facility. And we recognise that for some organisations, commissioning organisations, they maybe commission 2 or 3 different organisations to work on their behalf. And what this facility does is it allows for the capture and analysis of reports from different accounts. So all the other different organisations that commissioning agency, the umbrella commissioning account, would be looking for. And again, that's been worked on, and it's hopeful that that will be available next year. In addition to those kind of developments, what we have is a number of areas of support which is available to anybody using the Outcome Star. And the first of these is a dedicated support from the regional team. Obviously, you've got Eileen and myself here today, but we also have 2 other members of the team for Scotland and Ireland, and we've got other members of staff and colleagues from down south that can assist if there is a specialism required or if we're short on the ground up here. So you'll always have a nominated single point of contact and people to be available to speak to. There's also bespoke training for all staff and management, where we can hopefully break down the barriers towards using the new tool. People can see the benefits to using it, and they'll be fully trained in terms of using it operationally that way. And for the management or the managers, perhaps strategic or more operational one, we've got that implementation support from the single point of contact to help you get things up and running, and thereafter to effectively use that star and the data that it gives you. As well as the dedicated team up here, we've got dedicated help desks, both for general inquiries, but also for the STAR online system. So if there's any issues towards using the STAR in practice or with the system itself, there is somebody at the end of a telephone call or at the end of an email. I mentioned this earlier, but we also have a number of free webinars. They generally last about an hour. They're on various topics, including data management, data entry, data reporting, implementation, and such like. But over and above those free webinars, we also have a wealth of different reference materials to assist all the different processes, so get your policies, get your procedures up to date so that it minimises the impact of introducing the STAR into your service. So before we move on to the last bit about pricing and training, is there any questions or comments?
Nothing in the chat, Jim.
Okay. So in terms of pricing for licensing and training, the licensing cost is £250 per year. And that includes one license for the account lead to get things set up for their own particular service. Thereafter, you have that option I talked about earlier on for an assistant account lead. That costs an additional £50 a year, but as I said, you can have one additional account lead or you can have 10. There is no additional cost for that. It's just £50 covers any number of assistant account leads. So that's you got your account and everything set up. What you would then have is staff licenses. So everyone that's using the STAR, all the practitioners that are using the STAR, that costs £40 per year. And all of these licensing and staff costs are annually renewable. So it's £250 per year, £50 per year for the assistant account lead, and £40 for the practitioners. As well as the licensing for practitioners, they must also be trained in the use of the STAR. But the license fee does include access to all the STAR online, and everything's regularly updated in terms of resources for all those different STARs. The training itself is really dependent on your own circumstances. But for the core training, if you've got a small number of staff, so 3 or less staff, it's charged individually at £240 per person. If you're looking for more than that to be trained, if you've got a group of 4 staff, it's £960. For a small course of between 5 and 8, it's £1,180. A medium course is £1,290. And a large course is £1,590. Now, obviously, if you've got 20 staff to get trained or 25, how that works is that we would charge for a large group course and then add additional places onto that. So it could be an additional 4 if you need 20 places or whatever. And that would be charged at an additional £99 per person. All these charges for training are one-off. So we only charge for the training that you actually need. And once you're trained once, you don't need to be retrained or refreshed unless you specifically want that. For some organizations that are larger, they actually want a trainer embedded within their own particular organization. We call that a licensed STAR trainer, and the cost for that is on the screen just now. It's £2,450, and that includes their training and their first year license. Again, that's renewable per year, and the cost is half of that for the renewal of £1,225, but that does include access to a CPD program for trainers, so they're kept up to date with all the different developments in terms of using the STAR. We also do practice review or refresher trainings, and they're charged either for a half-day of the course or for a full day, depending on your requirement. And we also do bespoke training for managers, maybe things on action planning or having difficult conversations. And again, they tend to all be half-day training, so it's charged at that half-day rate. And ladies and gentlemen, that's really all that I wanted to cover today. As was highlighted earlier on, I will send a copy through to Jayne of the presentation today, and she'll email you all of that out. Within that, you have our contact details. If you want to find out more about the pathway or the work star or any other star for that matter, then please feel free to get in contact. And if you already use the star and you need further support, then please get in contact with us and we'll link you in with your Outcome Star contact. So just thanks for listening, and I'm happy to take any other questions if it's in the chat or if you want to come off of mute and ask the questions direct.
Thanks, Jim. That was great. That felt like a really comprehensive overview of the Outcome Star, and I hope helpful for folk who are completely new to it or those just looking for a refresh. If there are any burning questions, please feel free to raise a real or virtual hand that hasn't already been covered, obviously. I just give that a minute or two. Whilst I do that, I will post the evaluation into the chat. Pegs, are you coming in?
While you're doing, yeah, I was just going to say, while you're doing that, Dorothee's popped in the chat. If several organisations work together in a consortium, do they pay once, or how would that work? Do they have to have several different accounts?
It's really down to how they want it set up. What we have seen for some organisations is that, for example, if it is that consortium, you will have a lead organisation. So they will have an account for themselves, but within that lead organisation, you'll have kind of other people licensed under that consortium type thing. Other organisations, although they're working in a consortium, want their own account and they want their own licenses and they want to manage that for themselves. So really, we can set it up whatever way is desired in that regard.
Thanks. And I know you said about the trialing and the integration, that's got picked up. I think obviously for a lot of people, that's a big challenge, not having to have extra layers of data systems. So I think that sounds really interesting and positive. And yeah, I guess I'll hand back to Jayne in a minute, but I wanted to say thank you from me. I think this is something that comes up sort of nationally as well as locally as a big challenge, is how do we demonstrate and make visible the journeys that people are on, and not just focus on the job, recognizing that for those furthest from the labour market, there's quite a lot of other things on the way. And it does feel like all the work that's gone into the Outcome Star is one tool which might help us with that, and has a lot of potential to kind of support that, but also perhaps more importantly to support that meaningful conversation. Absolutely. With the person who's being supported, which, you know, is what really needs to be front and center. So I think just a huge thank you to you and the team for your time. I'll hand back to Jayne.
Thanks, Pegs. So I've just popped the link to the evaluation, which will honestly take you 2 minutes or even less, in the chat, and also a couple of upcoming sessions that we have. I'd like to add my thanks to Pegs, to both Jim and Eileen for today. This is so crucially important, I think, and if you've got the tools to back up the fantastic work you're doing, then I think that's a win all round. I think the one also thing to stress, and I know you did cover it a couple of times, Jim, is that once you pay the license, you get access to all the stars. You know, so it's not just the work star or the, you know, the pathway star. It's all the stars, and there are so many that I think would kind of work for so many of the third sector organisations on the call today. So I think just to say thank you again, Jim. Thanks, Eileen, and Pegs, as always. And thank you all for coming along. We'll get the email out to you either today or tomorrow, hopefully, and the session will be recorded. So if you miss parts of it, we'll get that posted on our YouTube channel as well, so you can kind of jump on and revisit any bits that you want to kind of hear again. So I think that's us, and we've We're 4 minutes ahead of schedule, so people have 4 minutes back in their day, potentially another cup of coffee. I think that's where I'll be going now. But thanks ever so much, everyone, and we'll see you soon.